across the headlines. Former military head Kamara recaptured after jailbreak.
Health Ministry says Palestinian death toll surpasses 10,000.
Thai Prime Minister says photos of hostages show they are alive.
Pope decries anti-Semitism, more terrorism.
Donald Trump testifies in court.
Police break up pro-Palestinian protests ahead of Melbourne COP.
Head Kamara recaptured after jailbreak. Earlier that at about 5 a.m. GMT, heavily armed men burst into the prison and managed to leave with 4 prisoners, notably Captain Mosa Dadis Kamara. He said the borders had been closed. It was under whether Kamara had escaped of his own free will. The army described the operation as an attempt to sabotage government reforms and swore its unwavering commitment to the current military-led authorities. The judicial source speaking on condition of anonymity said the masked and heavily armed soldiers who arrived at Concurry's central prison declared they had come to free Kamara. Inside, the group headed towards his cell, appearing to already know its location, the source said. Haber said he believed his client had been...
Though sometimes challenging relationships since the Mau Mau revolution, the prolonged struggle against colonial rule in thousands of Kenyans died. Although he didn't explicitly apologize for Britain's...
From Morocco's National Institute of Archaeological Sciences and Heritage said that the site's significance stems from its location on the water, which likely made it an important trading site facilitating the exchange of materials, including the import of Italian marble and export of African ivory. He said that new excavations underscored the city's wealth and hoped to find out more in the coming months. Ben said sites like Volbilis get 500 visitors per year. We are aiming for 1 million by developing the site, bringing it to life, settling up marketing, communications, and everything.
United States officials and lawmakers expressed support Saturday for the Express to have the program extended. It is currently slated to expire in September 2025. AGWA is United States legislation that allows sub-Saharan
diplomatic channels and protocols to deal with his conduct. Pro-Palestinian protesters who have been staging demonstrations by the U.S. consulate in Johannesburg and Israeli embassies in Pretoria and Cape Town have called on the South African government to expel the Israeli ambassador.
The military wing of Palestinian group Hamas said Monday it fired rockets from Lebanon into northern Israel, triggering Israeli airstrikes on the Lebanese side of the border. The Qassam Brigade said in a statement its militants fired 16 rockets on the town of Nahariya and the southern outskirts of the city of Hafia in retaliation for Israel's attack on Gaza. Hafia is a further city targeted by the rockets from the Lebanese side since the start of the Israel-Hamas war nearly a month ago. The Israeli army said approximately 300 rockets were fired from the Lebanese side targeting northern Israel, adding that it was responding by shelling the origin points of rocket launches. The exchange lasted about half an hour and Israel's Iron Dome could be clearly seen intercepting rockets from Lebanon. Relative calm prevailed afterwards. About 3 hours later, Israel's Air Force carried out airstrike on Hezbollah targets inside Lebanon. Israeli military spokesman Avichai Adre posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, adding that details would follow later. Strong explosions could be heard in that area. The exchange of fire came as Lebanon's militant group Hezbollah said its fighters attacked at least 3 Israel military posts along the border around sunset Monday. Lebanon's state-run media also reported a drone strike on the outskirts of the village Aramta near the war started. The fighting has been largely contained. Responders and medics worked overnight to retrieve the dead and wounded, they said. Ghassan Abu Sita, a surgeon at Al-Shifa Hospital, said the bombardment of the camp shook the hospital's buildings. They pounded the camp all night. The buildings of the Al-Shifa Hospital were shaking all night, and we started getting the bodies and the wounded. It was horrendous, he told the Associated Press.
Also denied Israeli military statement that the group has a tunnel near a hospital in Gaza. In a hole shown in a photo presented by the Israeli military. Spokesperson is used for storing fuel. Hamdan urged the UN to send an international committee to visit hospitals to confirm they are not being used by Hamas for military activities. Between rich and poor countries over how to get money to vulnerable people afflicted by climate disaster. Talks over funds for loss and damage, which refers to the rescue and rehabilitation of countries and communities experiencing the effects of extreme weather, started in March but broke down in Rancor 2 weeks ago. Countries have reconvened in Abu Dhabi for a final 2-day meeting ending on Saturday night to try to resolve the outstanding problems ahead of the UN COP28 not broad agreement before the summit. The plans will become blood down in the complex COP negotiations. Harjeet Singh, the head of global political strategy at Climate Action Network International, said, "The meeting is a make or break moment that will determine the success or failure of the new loss and damage fund. We must bridge the trust gap, operationalize the fund, and provide the necessary support to those who need it most. We cannot afford to fail at the lives and livelihoods of millions at stake. But there remains a chasm between the developed countries who want cash contributions to be voluntary and to come from large emerging economies such as China and Gulf petrostates, as well as traditional donors such as the US and Europe, and poor nations who are in Egypt, that a loss and damage fund should be set up, a historic first step that developing countries had been seeking for more than a decade. Poor countries have contributed least to the climate crisis with tiny carbon footprints compared to the rich world, but they bear the brunt of extreme weather around the world owing to geography, the basic state of their infrastructure, and the lack of resources. The floods that devastated Pakistan just over a year ago and the droughts that brought crippling hunger to the Horn of Africa are two examples of extreme weather driven and exacerbated by the climate crisis, where loss and damage funds could have helped vulnerable people in dire need. Disasters such as these are forecast to become much more frequent as global temperatures rise further, and
has long been a political symbol, as well as particularly after becoming mandated in the years following the 1979 Islamic Revolution. While women in Afghanistan remain the only country's mandate since Amini's death. However, more women are choosing not to wear it despite an increasing campaign by authorities targeting them and businesses serving them. You are watching International News on Atlantic Television Network. We will return after this break.
News on Atlantic Television. The Biden administration hopes that pauses in its October 7 incursion into southern Israel that killed more than
Semi-skilled farm laborers who come
fraternity and open paths of reconciliation for all.
The French Senate started debating a hugely controversial immigration bill Monday that the government says will accelerate the process of deporting foreigners. Dozens of protesters gathered outside the French Senate on Monday as lawmakers began debating a bill in terms of deporting foreigners who are regarded as a serious threat to public order. The legislation includes a provision that will give legal state organizations have criticized the bill as a threat to the rights of asylum seekers and other migrants. The upper house of parliament is dominated by conservatives who are opposed to giving legal status to workers who entered France illegally, arguing the move would create a chronic effect that encourages more migrants to come into France. Abubakar Dember, an activist for an undocumented workers group, says denying undocumented people the right to benefits such as health care was a danger to the health system as a whole. The Senate debate is the first step in what is likely to be a long and difficult legislative journey. The bill was postponed several times this year due to a lack of support from parliamentary majority. Several non-governmental organizations have criticized the overall legislation as threatening migrant rights.
The EU is poised to water down a landmark piece of car pollution legislation after extensive lobbying from the automotive industry, which experts say will cost an estimated 100 billion euros in health and environmental costs. Analysis provided by the Consortium for Ultra-Low Vehicle Emissions shows that half of the projected financial savings will be lost due to damage caused by excess nitrogen dioxide. This toxic gas is the main contaminant released by combustion engines, especially diesel ones, and was responsible for 49,000 premature deaths in the EU and 5,750 in the UK. Just 1 year. Clove quotes members EU that stronger restrictions on road pollution could have brought.
Two senators from Maine asked the United States Army Inspector General on Monday to provide a full accounting of interactions with a reservist before he killed 18 people and injured 13 others in the deadliest shooting in the state's history. United States Senator Susan Collins, a Republican, and Angus King, an independent, told Lieutenant General Donna W. Martin in a letter that it's important to understand what occurred or failed to occur at the federal level, including the Army, before Robert Card opened fire at the bowling alley and in Lewiston. Fellow soldiers expressed concern about Card's mental health before the October 25th shootings. One of them sent a text message in September saying, "I believe he's going to snap and do a mass shooting," according to law enforcement. The senators view their federal request as working in tandem with an independent commission that Democratic Governor Janet Mills is convening to explore the facts related to the shooting, including the police response. As we continue to grieve the Needles' loss of life that day, we must work to fully understand what happened and what could have been done differently that might have been. that might have prevented this tragedy on the local, state, and federal levels, the senators wrote. The senators posed several questions, including under what circumstances the Army reports personnel to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, and when the Army seeks to invoke status laws to temporarily remove firearms from a soldier's possession.
Donald Trump has testified in court as a football club owner, casino builder, and airline buyer. He bragged in a deposition that he saved millions of lives by deterring nuclear war as president. Another time, he fretted about the dangers of long fruit. Conditioned by decades of trials and legal disputes, Trump is now poised to reprise his role as witness under extraordinary circumstances as a former Republican president fighting to save the real estate empire. New York civil fraud trial, taking the stand in a deeply personal matter that is central his image as a successful businessman and threatens to cost him control of marquee properties such as Trump Tower. His highly anticipated testimony in the trial of New York Attorney General Letitia James' lawsuit follows that of his eldest son, Trump Organization executives Eric and Donald Trump Jr., who testified last week. His eldest daughter, Ivanka, is set to testify on Wednesday. As court ended Friday, a state lawyer teased the former president's appearance, asked who will be testifying Monday. Andrew Armour told the judge the only witness will be Donald J. Trump. Trump has testified in court in at least 8 trials since 1986.
The father of a man charged in deadly 4th of July 19, Cremo III, was told too young to apply for his own gun license, but he could apply with the sponsorship of a parent or guardian. His father sponsored his application, even though just months earlier a relative reported to police that Cremo III had a collection of knives and had threatened to kill everyone. Cremo Jr. was arrested in December 2022 and pleaded not guilty this year to 7 counts of reckless conduct. He waived his right to a jury trial, meaning George Strickland will hear evidence and issue a verdict. Defense attorney George Gomez has called the charges against Cremo Jr. baseless and unprecedented. Anti-gun violence advocates say they are encouraged that police and prosecutors are investigating anyone who may have contributed to the attack, while legal experts say criminal liability can be hard to prove against a shooter's parent or guardian. More often, they face civil lawsuits where legal standards or proof are less stringent.
A Jewish man who fell backwards and hit his head during an altercation amid pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian street protests in California has died. His death is being treated as a homicide. Paul Kessler, 69, died of blunt force head trauma a day after the altercation on Sunday. The Ventura County Sheriff Office said, adding that witnesses described the incident as battery. The sheriff's office said no suspicion as of Monday night, and the incident appears to be isolated and not part of a large effort, but it had not been ruled out as a hate crime. Separate pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian demonstrations occurred simultaneously on Sunday in the city of Thousand Oaks, about 40 miles west of Los Angeles. The sheriff's office said Kessler was involved in a physical altercation between counter-protesters, the sheriff's office said, citing witnesses' accounts. It did not specify which side instigated the altercation. During the altercation, Kessler fell backwards and struck his head on the ground. Kessler was transported to an area hospital for advanced medical treatment. On 6th of November 2023, Kessler succumbed to his injuries, the statement said. Deputies asked the public for help in what it called an active and ongoing investigation. Rabbi Noah Farkas, the president and chief executive of the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles, said, "This is what's happening in America right now. There is a culture of fear and a culture of really terror against the Jewish community happening."
Honduras on Friday became the latest Latin American country to record waiting trial on drug trafficking charges in the United States. At the time, Honduras' decision to move embassy to Jerusalem was seen as an attempt by Hernandez to curry favor with the Trump administration, which had moved the United States embassy there in 2018. Castro, a leftist, succeeded Hernandez. Honduras' first female president had tried to walk a line that aligns with the leftist governments the hemisphere like Venezuela and Cuba, but without completely alienating the United States.
During a protest that blocked part of a busy intersection next to the Flemington race course ahead of the Melbourne Cup. 4 people were in police custody on Tuesday afternoon after being arrested at a protest where about 100 activists chanted "Free Palestine" and a ceasefire now outside a major sporting event and blocked a road leading to the race course. A footage of the protest showed activists blocking the entrance and being surrounded by police. In a video posted on social media, one protester is seen holding an elite flare while standing on top of a van with the words "Free Palestine" written on it. Videos also show police dragging protesters away from the scene as they attempted to move traffic through the intersection. A Victoria police spokesperson said about 100 Palestinian protesters arrived at the roundabout at Epsom Road, Ascot Vale Road, and Racecourse Road. Racecourse Road at about 11 a.m. A female protester arrived in a white van and climbed onto the roof where, for some time, she failed to obey police instructions to calm down. The spokesperson said, in the course of managing the non-compliant protesters, police sprayed protesters before arresting 3 of them.